guys for joining. I see we got Lanaya and is it Day? Make sure I pronounce it. De Leon, right?
Yep.
Awesome. It's good to see you again, man. I'm glad that you tapping in every week. Lets me know that you're trying to do something with your life, man.
No problem, man. Appreciate it, man.
For sure. And Lanaya, am I pronouncing your name right? Clark's giving me a head shake. Yes, so cool. So I be jacking students' names up. I'm not gonna lie. I'm sorry. That's cool. All right. Well, we'll get started in a couple moments. I guess what we can do, because we got two in here right now. What's a good icebreaker? Okay, let me think. Gosh, someone help me out. Someone drop a good icebreaker question in the chat. We haven't did an icebreaker in a while. I should have thought about this before we got on.
Well, it's St. Patrick's Day. Maybe we could say, how do you feel lucky? Do you have a lucky charm? Do you have a lucky charm that you do something, are you so superstitious in any way that you've got to, if you're a ball player, do you put on your left sock before your right sock?
Yes, no, that's the question. What is your lucky charm? You go ahead and drop that in the chat. Or if you feel comfortable enough with, hopping on the video or unmuting yourself, go ahead. That's how we'll start today's session. What is your lucky charm? So you can drop it in the chat if you're a little nervous, or you can unmute yourself, and we are live. Let's see what's in the chat. I guess I'll go first. So when I was in college, I played college football at the University of Cincinnati. I'm a Bearcat. Yes, I am a Bearcat through and through. I would show my rings, but I ain't going to stunt today. I would make, and this is sad that I put my parents through this, but we would get issued socks. So the whole team would get issued the game issue socks, but I would always have my parents bring me NFL style socks from home each game. So we would do like this Bearcat walk from the hotel to the actual stadium. And my parents would be waiting at the very end of the line to give me a fresh new bag of socks that I was literally just going to cut up and make look cool. But I had to have them every game or I just didn't feel like myself. I didn't like wearing the socks that everybody else were issued. I wanted to do my own thing. So that's kind of like one of my lucky charms when I played. And it's one of my most fond memories when I played in college.
So Chris, mine were also socks. I was starting to put it in the chat. So I had a pair of, not the same, but I had a pair of lucky socks, or at least I thought they were lucky. And they were really bright, like orange and purple and green. And I would wear them even if it was warm weather. And they were like tube socks. And I would wear them for every test that I took in college. If I was like writing a big paper, if I had a big event, I wore them. I remember like when I was interviewing for a job and had to try to figure out how to wear like pants and dress shoes over these socks, which also meant, because I like didn't have a laundry easily, it meant sometimes they would go for quite a while without being washed, but I couldn't not wear the socks. And, by the end of a semester with finals, and then I kept them actually for quite a while into graduate school and my first job and would still wear them. And then I lost them in a move. But clearly here we are now, but for a good decade or 2 decades, I had those socks.
Did you wash them frequently?
When I could, but again, like when I was in the midst of it as a college student and finals, they definitely, I think I tried to like hide them in a plastic bag so that they didn't like smell up my room or anything with my roommates.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Thank you for sharing. We got anybody else that has a lucky charm? I don't see anything in the chat. Y'all being shy today.
I always have a hard time getting unmuted. So my lucky charm will be my fan. I cannot sleep without it. I bring my fan everywhere. I played collegiate basketball, so every road trip, my fan was the first thing I put in my bag. It's something that I sleep directly in my face And yeah,
Awesome.
so that would be my lucky charm.
Lucky fan. I'm with it. So I think Lana.
This I have a get with so I have a little blanket that I get. Lucky blanket.
I think it's skipping. I couldn't hear.
Hey, Chris, I got one for you.
All right, let's hear it.
All right, you guys don't get too freaked out about this, but when I played college basketball or basketball period, depending on if I played a really good game, I wouldn't watch that jersey or practice jersey or that shirt, but I carried an extra one with me. So in case I wasn't having a good game, then I could switch to it. But if I was having good games every time I played in that particular jersey or shirt, I wouldn't watch it. So whoever had to guard me, they were going to be in some pain.
Now that's some stanky business right there.
Oh yeah, it worked though. It works.
Or that's a good strategy to keep them away from you, right?
Yeah,
So.
exactly.
So I think oh, there she goes. Was it Mary that had shared and we couldn't hear her? I think she's back with us. Awesome. Mary, you're back with us.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I got like everybody just disappeared. I don't know if maybe my Wi-Fi glitched or something. It was weird.
Awesome. So were you sharing about the lucky blanket?
I was.
Awesome. We have another one of our other coaches has a lucky blanket as well. She shared. Awesome. And then Lanaya, I think I saw in the chat, Lanaya shared that she has, let me see. Okay, Lanaya shared that. Oh, did I miss it? Okay, her lucky charm is a necklace. She doesn't really wear it, usually carries it around, especially when she has a test. Okay. Jewelry. I always lose jewelry. I do. I have a ring from my father that passed away, and I try to keep it at home. I'd be wanting to use it as a lucky charm, but if I lose that, I'm going to lose my mind. So I keep it at home. All right. DeLeon, I know you got one, man. Come on. I know you got some dirty socks or something like that.
No, I'll be honest, I don't really have a lucky charm, man. I really never was into that. Like I really never had a lucky charm, to be honest with you.
Okay, you just roll with the punches, huh?
Yeah, yep.
I'm with it. All right, cool. We got anybody else that wants to share before we get started?
I don't have a lucky charm, but 23 is my favorite number. So I always assume I'm going to have, well, funny enough, yeah, Michael Jordan, and I just love that number. So I always feel like I'm going to have a really good day on the 23rd of the month.
Awesome. So you got a week left, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Next
right.
week, I'll be having a good day.
I'm going to check in with you. I'm going to check in. I'm going to send you an email, be like, hey, how lucky is today?
Please do.
All right. All right. Well, if no one else has to share, I'll go ahead and get started. But that was pretty fun. We need to do that more often. Brandy, I see you back. You got a lucky charm? So icebreaker question. So icebreaker question today was, do you, in the spirit of St. Pat's and all that, do you have a lucky charm? And if you do, what is it? And if not, you don't have to share.
Like something like I keep personally as a lucky charm?
Maybe, yeah. We've had dirty socks. We have, dirty T-shirts. We got numbers. We got Cookie Monster blankets. We got regular blankets.
I'll say my stuffed animal.
Stuffed animal. What kind of animal is it?
It's a cat.
Stuffed cat.
A pink cat on my bed. It's big, fluffy.
Is it Pink Panther cat?
Low key. I mean, it keep me safe at night.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. So if that's everyone, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to introduce our phenomenal liaison, Kirsten Fox, who continues to bring us just a lot of experience to these College Readiness Wednesday sessions. Again, I'm Coach Chris Williams with Lead the Way Learning Academy, and I'm excited to have these guests today that Kirsten's going to introduce. There's a lot of money on the table. For those that, caught our social media posts, there's a lot of money that can be made, for your academic status. And there's opportunities for you to experience the 2-year experience, right, at your own pace, and then be able to have, the 4-year experience as well at essentially, it sounds like half the price. So without further ado, Kirsten Fox, thank you again for joining us and bringing these phenomenal guests. And I'm going to pass the baton to you.
Great. Thanks, Coach Chris. So good afternoon, everyone, or good evening or morning if you're watching us at a later time. So as we have been doing these weekly series since early January, we have had an admissions representative from Columbus State talk really specifically about Columbus State, and we had admissions officer from Otterbein talk specifically about Otterbein, and we really did kind of a campus highlight of each. And so one of the things we wanted to make sure we talked more about was the actual dual admission program between Columbus State and Otterbein. And so we talked a lot about Lucky Charms earlier. Going to college, there's a little bit of luck, but it's a lot of just knowledge of knowing what your options are. And that's what this series is about, is really how do we help make sure that we're getting the right information into your hands so you can make decisions that best suit you and meet your needs. And so really excited to have this conversation today because I think it's a really great program, really in the backyards of many of for many of us. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amanda Talbot, who is the dual admission coordinator and works for both Columbus State and Otterbein in her role. And then Mary Mosca, who's the assistant director of admissions for Otterbein. I don't believe you work for both specifically, but you obviously still work with the program. So, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to our two guests and just say thank you for joining us today.
Got on mute. Thank you. Thank you for asking us to come. And we really do have a passion for this program. And I hope that comes across today. Just to give you a little bit of background about myself and where I come from and what I have done in my past is I am a graduate of Otterbein many, many moons ago, and I have spent almost all of my higher ed career at Otterbein in a variety of capacities, but I've been fortunate enough to work with transfer students the last 10 years and very fortunate to work with Amanda in the last 2. She has brought a lot of energy to our program. Amanda, would you like to say anything right now?
Yes, thank you for that kind introduction. So I have been in higher ed for the past 7 or so years. I started out in the admissions world and then transitioned to the program coordinator for the dual admission program. So in more of an advising capacity. And I've been at Columbus State for the past about 1.5 years as the coordinator of this program.
So really today, what we thought we would like to do is maybe talk a little bit about the history of dual admission and where it came from. Columbus State has several what they call preferred pathway programs with a variety of institutions across Ohio. And they are partnerships with these schools that allow a student to bring transfer credit to their institution. Well, we were a preferred pathway and still are a preferred pathway partner with Columbus State, but we also saw the need to take that preferred partnership and kind of blow it up, make it larger than just what the normal preferred pathway was. We knew that Columbus State students were being very successful at Otterbein. Their GPAs really overall outpaced our native students. They were bringing excellent credit through our preferred pathway program. So what more could we do to help with the transition from Columbus State to Otterbein? So in 2018, we gave birth to the dual admission program. What is the dual admission program? It allows a student to have 2 campuses, but 1 campus experience, 1 unified student experience. To start with, the student will only have 1 application. They fill out 1 application and they are admitted from day 1 to both Columbus State and Otterbein. So we have really taken a roadblock out of the way for a student that wants to see themselves through both an associate's degree and a bachelor's degree. One of the things that we intended for this program to do is really look at 5 very specific academic areas that would allow a student to gain good transfer credit at Columbus State and then seamlessly transition to Otterbein to complete a bachelor's degree. Amanda will talk about those 5 academic programs, but we know that many, many students start their higher ed academic journey undecided. They don't really know what they want to explore. Do they want to be in early childhood education or do they want to be in engineering? And we have established the opportunity for a student to start their academic journey at Columbus State while still exploring lots of different pathways, and they can still join the dual admission program up until they've earned 30 hours. That's practically a full year of credit from Columbus State before they really have to land on what program do they want to be in? Do they want to go into business or do they want to go into health and sports sciences? So we've really kind of taken our programs and really worked them so that the student can still kind of do some exploration on career paths before they join the dual admission program. This program is also really started so that a student starts as a Cougar and ends up as a Cardinal. We want students to know from day 1 that they are going to start at Columbus State, stay there for 2 years, and then transition seamlessly to Otterbein. One of the benefits about that being accepted at both institutions is that you're a student at both institutions. You get an ID at both institutions. You get to participate in activities and clubs and organizations at both institutions. For our student athletes out there, that's one thing that we can't allow you to do. Against NCAA regulations, you're not going to be able to participate in collegiate athletics at Otterbein until you actually transition to Otterbein. But once you complete those first 2 years of study at Columbus State and earn that associate's degree, you're going to move smoothly with Amanda's help into your bachelor program at Otterbein. And as Coach Chris kind of alluded to, it's the best financial program out there. You're going to earn 2 degrees for less than what half of a degree would cost at an Ohio public university. You can't really beat that financially.
Thank you, Mary. So in looking at this particular program, there are several benefits for students. We think one of the top ones would be that advising piece. So as Mary mentioned, there is a seamless process from Columbus State and Otterbein. And we'd like to think that the advising piece really helps capture this. So as the program coordinator, I would work with students while they're both at Columbus State and Otterbein. So we have engagement throughout the entire 4 years, an established relationship. And it's just really nice to be able to work with a student that entire time. That was one of the things that was hard in admissions. You would have such a great rapport with a student and then have to say goodbye. So it's really nice that I'm able to stay with the students their entire time at both institutions. So I make sure that they are taking the right courses. We meet at least once a semester to go over the course schedule and just make sure that they're on track to graduate at Columbus State and then get the most classes in before they transfer over to Otterbein. Likewise, I have a cohort well, I should say with my cohort of students, I have an email group, and I send out at least twice a month just updates, reminders about registration, events on both campuses, payment deadlines, and hopefully other helpful information. So another way to kind of keep everyone on track. In terms of that affordability piece, the biggest thing would be the dual admission scholarships that students are eligible as part of this cohort. So if a student is part of the dual admission program at Columbus State and they've earned their associate's degree with at least a 2.75 GPA, then they would automatically be eligible for a $17,000 a year scholarship once they transition to Otterbein. It's nothing that they have to register for or sign up for. I work very closely with Mary, and so we make sure that that is on their financial aid award letter as they transition over. Kind of along those lines, one of the things that I do as part of their advising is every semester, once grades are posted at Columbus State, I send the updated transcripts over to Otterbein. And likewise, once they graduate, I do the same. So students never have to worry about sending a transcript over themselves. So that helps, you know, one less thing that they have to pay for. And then they don't have to pay for an application, a transfer application, which is great. And then that last affordability piece, typically when a student applies to a university, in order to confirm that they want to go there, there's an enrollment fee that they would have to pay. And so since you're a student at both institutions from the start, that's one less thing that you have to do. So saving both money and time, which is helpful. And then finally, in terms of campus life, as a student at both institutions, you will get a student ID at Columbus State and Otterbein. You'll receive a student ID number. And then lastly, you can get a student ID card at both institutions. So as soon as you're part of the cohort, you can go to Otterbein and get your student ID. You get a little discount at some of the places around campus. So if you like coffee, that's always a good thing, and that also gives you access to all the events on both campuses as well. And likewise, I have a lot of students, especially now, if you're not familiar, Columbus State is mostly remote, while Otterbein has students on campus. And so a lot of my Columbus State students have taken advantage of that, and they use the library at Otterbein, so they have a physical place to study. So we definitely encourage students to do that. This was a lot of information, so I'm going to pause for 1 second and just see if we have any questions, either in the chat or you're more than welcome to unmute.
I have a question. So with most of our youth being, you know, how do I say this? Well, most of our youth being Pell eligible, what is that financial, and I may be ahead of myself, but what does that financial piece look like? You know, what does it kind of look, what is kind of like that out-of-pocket cost, you know, that I may have at Columbus State, and then transitioning to Otterbein, maybe speaking to maybe some of the out-of-pocket expenses there?
I'll start and then I'll let Mary finish, since she knows the financial piece a little better holistically. And I appreciate that question. That's really good. So this program is really designed for students to not live on campus, to commute once they get to Otterbein. And so that's a really huge cost savings if you're thinking of out-of-pocket expenses. If you don't live on campus, then you are not required to have a meal plan. So we're really just looking at tuition, and then of course books as a side piece. So for the tuition, of course, you could imagine it changes every year, and Mary can get into that a little bit more. But with that $17,000, you're paying a little less than 50% of tuition. And this dual admission scholarship is considered a merit-based scholarship. So students are still eligible for any other government aid, and we do highly encourage students to fill out the FAFSA for that Pell grant eligibility.
Now, and you say that with the FAFSA now, is that, and Mary, I know you may speak to this, but is that, so they'll complete the FAFSA now for our students that are looking to enroll into Columbus State. Now, would that FAFSA automatically update in regards to, the being able to receive those scholarships and that merit-based money from Otterbein, or do they have to reapply after their second year at Columbus State?
Okay, so just to back up just a little bit, Coach Chris, a FAFSA, you have to reapply every year for federal financial aid, okay? So as a student enters into Columbus State, they're gonna file the FAFSA. If they're Pell eligible, most likely their Pell Grant is going to cover their cost of education at Columbus State. Columbus State may or may not show them eligibility for Stafford loans. And Stafford loans are federal regulated loans that are either subsidized by the government or unsubsidized where interest begins. We would encourage a student at Columbus State not to borrow. If their Pell Grant completely covers their cost of tuition, then do not borrow money. You don't need any other money to pay for your education. We have seen students that go out and borrow their full amounts and then they get in trouble, right? They have a student loan debt that's much higher than what they're able to handle. So if, again, I'm going to repeat it, if again, your Pell Grant covers your cost of attendance at Columbus State, you should not borrow any additional funding. Again, each year you have to file the FAFSA. So yes, as you're leaving Columbus State, your last year at Columbus State that you're going to receive your associate's degree, you're going to file a FAFSA and list Otterbein on it to receive the results of your FAFSA. Amanda told you that this program is intended for students to be a commuter student. We know room and board is the biggest price percentage of going to college. So eliminating that right away is very helpful. So then you're going to take our cost of attendance. You're going to subtract your dual admission scholarship. You're going to subtract any additional gift assistance that the federal government has deemed you eligible for based upon the results of the FAFSA, like your Pell Grant, like, FESCOG, whatever. There's a whole bunch of those. Then you could also be eligible for additional funding, gift funding from Otterbein. The second part of your financial aid package is that self-help, which is loans. Do students borrow at Otterbein? Yes, sometimes they do. Sometimes they don't have to. It's hard for me to tell you, Coach Chris, what your out-of-pocket cost would be at Otterbein because every situation is different. When we get to that part, and when a student then does see their financial aid package at Otterbein, I will go through that by line and make sure that they understand what resources are being used to help defer their cost of education. And if there is any expectation of the family to contribute to the education, what that is, and if the family can contribute.
Thank you. That was fun. That just broke it down. I'm kind of familiar with it, but I appreciate you clarifying that because I know that's one of the things students. I just got off a call with a youth, and we were looking at Columbus State, and she's like, "I'm not trying to pay any loan money. I saw my mom had to pay loans, and it just held up her career." So that's one of the big things with our youth is that money, right? We want to make money, we want to save money. So I appreciate you clarifying that for us.
Coach Chris, that was a great question. So I appreciate you allowing us to clarify. And that's part of that advising piece too. I know sometimes FAFSA can be tricky. Typically, it opens up in October for the next school year. So you're thinking very far ahead. And I'll make sure that I walk students through that. More often than not, when they're in their final year at Columbus State, they're simply just going to put Columbus State and Otterbein down on their FAFSA application where they list their schools. Okay, so Mary mentioned when this program initially started, there were 5 main academic areas that we focused on. And since 2018, we've actually added quite a few to the list. Before I talk about the specific majors, one thing that I did want to mention, we really think that this program works well simply because the student support and resources are very similar at both institutions. So you're looking at those smaller class sizes, professors that are very, hands-on with their students and willing to help and support in any way. So that's part of that seamless process as well, that academic piece in the classroom. So that being said, we have listed here the 5 main academic areas. And one of the reasons why this program works the way that it does is every major that we have listed here has what we call a 2+2 pathway. And I'm going to show you an example of what that looks like. But essentially, the academic faculty at both Columbus State and Otterbein got together and they said, this is a confirmed program. We will allow these Columbus State courses to transfer over directly to Otterbein so that by the time that they graduate from Columbus State, we can confirm that they will only have 2 years remaining or 4 semesters remaining at Otterbein. And so when we're looking at this, just keep in mind, these are what we call 2+2 pathways. That being said, there are some majors that just don't work that easily. So one in particular, and I've noted them at the bottom here, one in particular would be our nursing program. First of all, much like zoo science and musical theater, nursing is a very competitive program, as you might imagine. And that being said, the other piece is no matter what students are transferring over, they're going to be taking nursing classes at Otterbein for 3 years. And so there's not that 2+2 split. That being said, though, Mary and I work with any student that's interested in transferring over to Otterbein. She and I work very closely together. So even if you see a major that's not on here, we'll figure out a plan for you. And as best as we can, let you know how long you might be at Otterbein if it's not that cut and dry 2+2 program. So I have a URL here at the bottom, and we can share this in the chat before we end as well. But that particular URL will list all of the pathways, and Columbus State's website has that listed as well. So just so I can show you an example here, this is what we mean by a 2+2 pathway. So you can see at the top, this particular one is for an accounting major. And you'll see the first 2 years are all the classes that you would take at Columbus State. And then your final 2 years are courses that you take at Otterbein. So if we look at this top left semester, autumn of your freshman year, the very first class listed is called English 1100 Composition. And you'll see in brackets, it says INST 1500, WI. Anything in brackets would be the Otterbein equivalent course. So this particular course is a writing intensive at Otterbein. And don't worry, that's part of the advising process as well. We'll make sure that you understand this. This is just for you as a reference to understand what your pathway might look like. So with that, I'm going to take a pause again and see if there are any questions about the pathways.
So I added in the chat, I asked, what majors do we have on the call? I know the 2 youth that obviously that are on the call don't have a degree yet, but if you guys want to share maybe, what your interests are, go ahead and drop that in the chat or, unmute yourself and share maybe some of the ideas of majors you may be thinking about. See, Scott has a communications degree. We got human development and family studies, child and family development, and a minor in social services. Cool.
Nice.
It's not unusual to not know really what you want to do, right? It's good to have an opportunity to just explore. There are also, I'll just plug this, and I don't know, maybe this would be a future session that you could think about doing, but there are also a lot of self-assessment quizzes out there that students can take that kind of narrow it down to what you want to do when you grow up? Heck, I'm not really sure what I want to do when I grow up. I'm just doing this temporarily right now. But that is, we do see that a lot, that students are just not sure. They're just still thinking about the opportunities that they have. And that's fine. What we would encourage you to do, though, is don't delay your academic journey. Let's take that step in. And even if it's just taking that English 1100 class, let's put our toe in the water and see where it can lead us.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a great idea. That's good, because we actually, so some of the assessments we use here, a lot of our students just through our program will have a Ohio Means Jobs account. They have a career profile, career inventory kind of assessment. We also try to use the 16 personalities assessments to kind of help our students understand their personality in the workspace, and also other areas of their life. And then we just came across another tool called ONET, I believe it's called, and they have another type of assessment that's similar to the one on How Means Jobs. So you youth that are on here, get with your coaches if you haven't already, and try to knock out one of those assessments. You still got tons of time, so don't feel overwhelmed. Like they shared, you'll continuously always be in search of your career. Things may change. You may get on campus, thought you loved this, and then shift. So never feel ashamed of not having a clear path, or you may want to pivot in a direction. It's your life. You have the autonomy, and we want to be here to empower you in your career endeavor. So check out those tools, and maybe some of the coaches or myself can drop those in the chat. And Mary, if you have an assessment or a tool that our students can benefit from, go ahead and drop that in the chat as well. Thank you.
Coach Chris, that was beautifully stated. I think so often students feel as if they have to have everything figured out, and that's definitely not the case. And I always commend the youth when they do take a step back and say, I'm not sure about this. I want to explore other things. That is the most important thing you can do, is just be true to yourself, keep taking time to think about what you're doing and adjusting if needed. And I would say, if you decide to wait until you get to, say, Columbus State or Otterbein to take some of those tests, you have the opportunity to work with career services. That's typically not an office that a lot of students think about until maybe they're ready to interview for a job. But there are a lot of opportunities to take those assessments, oftentimes for free, with the career services, and just have those conversations with them. So I would encourage students to think about that as well. And, Mary and I are always happy. Anybody that you work with at the higher ed institution would be happy to talk through options with you. Were there any other questions? I can't see the chat. No.
No questions.
Perfect. So hopefully Mary and I have piqued your interest with this program. So we wanted to just talk through next steps, if that's something that you'd like to do. Obviously know that you can reach out to both Mary and myself, and we're happy to talk through, clarify, go into detail even more, anything that you'd like to chat about. If you're thinking of starting at Columbus State, there are two ways to join the program. So if you've never applied to Columbus State before, there's a particular dual admission application. It's on the admissions homepage, and it's right under the standard application. There's a little link for dual admissions. If you have ever applied to Columbus State before, and that would include if you're taking any CCP classes, you would have your Cougar ID and email address. Then it's just simply reaching out to me and filling out an intent form. So it's quite easy. And then we have a lot of information that we talked about today, and even more on our cscc to OTTU.com page as well. And finally, we wanted to share our email addresses. So if students wanted to reach out to either of us, we'd be more than happy to continue the conversation. Thank you all so much for your time.
Awesome. Well, I put one of the link. I typed one of the links in the chat, and it didn't create a hyperlink. So ignore that, and hopefully, if you guys were able to get that written down, or maybe you guys can drop that link in the chat, if students want to go ahead and maybe get on the ball now. But I'm gonna turn it over to Kirsten, just to maybe have some closing remarks. And again, we thank you all for joining us. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll actually keep it open as people are taking all the information in. I think we had some important questions already answered. I want to make sure nobody gets off today's call or this video with any unanswered questions. So I'll pause for a minute. Okay, I might just ask a more of a general question, Amanda and Mary, to you. But as you are thinking about the students that have joined us live and then the coaches that are then going to work with the students, if you could just give them kind of any piece of advice in general about applying to college, what do you think is sort of the most valuable piece of information that you would want to make sure they walk away with?
That's a good question. It's hard to narrow it down. I really just aligning with what Coach Chris said, and this idea that you're in power of your destiny and your future, and also just know that every step that you take is not the final step. So I know sometimes it can be daunting to start the process, but you just have to start with that first step, and then you'll see what's ahead of you at that point in time, and then you can adjust if needed.
And I guess I would say that, you know, in your academic journey, you will come face to face with roadblocks. Undoubtedly, there'll be roadblocks, but there will be people around you that are willing to help you with those roadblocks. You just have to advocate for yourself. Goes along with being empowered, right? But if you don't understand something, whether it's your financial aid package or how to read your schedule, you just have to ask. I haven't met one person in higher ed that isn't willing to reach back and offer a hand. So that is what we're here for. And honestly, if you listen today and think that really, you know, starting at Columbus State sounds wonderful, but you're not sure about Otterbein, reach out to us. Let's have a conversation. And maybe Otterbein's not the right fit. But like I said earlier, you know, I want you to start that journey. I want to give you every opportunity to go to college.
I appreciate both of those perspectives. And I think we've had some other presenters that have shared similar kind of points of view, but I don't think we can ever state them enough, right? I think both of those aspects are so important. You know, be empowered, advocate for yourself, right? It's just this next step. And then again, if you're not sure where to go, ask questions. If you're not sure of something, ask questions. I agree. I've spent over 20 years working in higher education. And if you ask anybody who works in higher education, speaking of the career component, why are you here? It's because people say, I want to help students, right? That's why people go into this field and that position. And so they are looking out for your best interest. And so just ask. Well, Mary and Amanda, this was incredibly insightful, and I think provided a lot of good, both kind of high level insight, but also very specific details as to kind of how to go through the dual admissions process and through the program. Again, I don't want to turn anybody off from being able to ask a question.
If you don't mind, I actually had a direct message, but I think that it would help the entire group. The question was about deadlines and if there was a certain deadline in which to apply to this program. So Columbus State has rolling admission, which means that you can apply any semester. That being said, if at any point, if you wanted to join the program, you're able to do so. It just may be a difference of starting in a month or 3 months, depending on when the next semester starts, because they don't allow students to register for classes once the semester officially starts. But you're more than welcome to just email me and I can talk you through that.
That was a good question. That was a really good question. That rolling missions is good. Lanaya, Daylon, y'all have any questions before we continue and kind of wrap things up? I just wanted, this is y'all space, so have at it.
No, I don't really have a question like that. Y'all pretty much touched every point for me.
Sweet. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate the feedback. Awesome. Well, if that's it for the 2 students that are on the call, please connect with your AMP coaches, okay? So they can coach you up, get you, figure out your career plans, right? Figure out what you want to do upon graduation, get the ball rolling now. It's never too early to start. And for those that are watching on demand, if you're interested in joining our program and having access to these events, you can go to our website at leadthewaylearningacademy.org. If you want to check us out on social media, you can check out our Facebook page at Lead the Way Learning Academy. We're also streaming this on YouTube at Lead the Way Learning Academy. And then for our social media, for our IG and Twitter, you can follow us at LTWLA _ Columbus. And I'm always going to plug myself. You can follow me, the swaggiest coach of them all, Chad, at LTWLA _ Chris. And again, we are back at it again, 3:30 next week. I know we're going to have another phenomenal guest. All right. So share this with your friends, share this with your family. Again, if you're interested, tap into our social media platforms and our website to connect with one of our phenomenal coaches. We have a bunch of dope coaches that you can see on this call. So I'm excited to connect with you all, and we'll see you next week. Peace.